3:40 hours, North Atlantic Ocean. The North Atlantic was dark and silent. A cold wind swept across the black water while thick clouds covered the early morning sky. Far from land, the ocean stretched endlessly in every direction. But beneath that quiet surface, powerful machines were moving through the depths. Dozens of ships and aircraft were operating in the region as part of a routine naval patrol. At the center of the operation was a U.S. carrier strike group, one of the most powerful naval formations in the world. At the heart of that formation sailed a massive aircraft carrier, surrounded by destroyers, cruisers, and support ships. Together they formed a floating fortress capable of projecting military power across entire oceans. But on this night, something else was moving in the deep water below them. Something watching, something hunting. 3:47 hours, the carrier strike group. The American carrier cut steadily through the waves at more than 20 knots. Bright lights illuminated its massive flight deck, while radar antennas rotated slowly above the island structure. Several fighter jets were parked along the deck, ready for rapid launch if necessary. Around the carrier, the rest of the strike group maintained a protective formation. Two guided missile destroyers patrolled ahead of the carrier, scanning the skies and ocean surface with powerful radar systems. Another destroyer sailed several kilometers behind the formation, watching for potential threats from the rear. Farther out, a cruiser monitored long-range missile defense. Together, their sensors created a defensive network stretching hundreds of kilometers across the ocean. But while the fleet's radar dominated the skies above, the real danger in the Atlantic often came from below. 3:52 hours, underwater patrol. Beneath the surface, American sonar systems were already listening carefully. Each destroyer in the formation carried advanced sonar arrays designed to detect submarines moving silently through the water. Some sonar systems were mounted directly beneath the ships. Others were towed far behind them through the ocean depths. These sensors could detect faint sounds from kilometers away. The hum of an engine, the rotation of a propeller, the subtle vibrations of machinery moving underwater. For hours, the sonar operators had heard nothing unusual. The ocean had remained quiet, but the silence was about to change. 4:03 hours. A faint signal. Inside the sonar control room of one of the American destroyers, a technician leaned closer to his display. A faint sound had just appeared on the acoustic spectrum. At first, it seemed almost like background noise, but the technician adjusted the filters and focused the system on the signal. The sound became clearer, slow, rhythmic, mechanical. It was the unmistakable sound of a propeller turning deep beneath the ocean surface, and it was moving closer. 4:05 hours. Contact possible submarine. The sonar technician immediately alerted the officer on watch. Within seconds, the system began recording the acoustic signature in greater detail. Every submarine produces a unique pattern of sound depending on its engine, propeller design, and onboard machinery. These patterns can be compared against massive databases used by naval intelligence. As the computer analyzed the sound, the result appeared on the screen. Probability match. Russian attack submarine. The room suddenly fell silent. 4:08 hours. A second signal. Before the officers could fully process the first contact, another sonar alert appeared. This signal came from a towed sonar array trailing behind another destroyer several kilometers away. Another underwater contact had been detected. This one was even quieter, but its acoustic pattern revealed something critical. There were now two separate submarine signatures moving beneath the carrier strike group. Both contacts were traveling slowly. Both were maintaining distance from the surface ships, and both were positioned exactly where submarines would operate if they were tracking a carrier. 4:12 hours. Russian shadowing operation. The information quickly reached the commander of the strike group. The situation was now clear. Russian submarines were shadowing the American fleet. This tactic had been used many times during the Cold War. Attack submarines would follow carrier groups from a distance, gathering intelligence on their movement patterns, communications, and defensive systems. In a real conflict, those submarines could launch torpedoes or cruise missiles capable of striking the carrier itself. But even during peacetime, such encounters were extremely serious, because underwater confrontations between nuclear-powered submarines could escalate quickly, and mistakes in the dark ocean depths could lead to disaster. 4:18 hours. Anti-submarine warfare activated. The carrier strike group immediately shifted into anti-submarine defense mode. Destroyers adjusted their formation to widen the detection perimeter. Additional sonar systems activated. Helicopters prepared for launch from the carrier's flight deck. These helicopters were specially designed for anti-submarine warfare. Each aircraft carried powerful sonar sensors, radar systems, and torpedoes capable of engaging enemy submarines. Within minutes, the first helicopter lifted off the deck and headed toward the suspected submarine contact. For 22 hours, deep ocean, cat and mouse. Meanwhile, far below the surface, the Russian submarines continued their silent approach. These vessels were among the quietest attack submarines in the Russian Navy. Their hulls were designed to reduce noise. Their propulsion systems minimized vibration. Their crews moved carefully to avoid creating unnecessary sound. From their perspective, the American carrier above them was a massive and valuable target. Even in peacetime, shadowing a carrier strike group provided critical intelligence. But the Russian commanders knew something else. If they were detected, the situation could escalate very quickly. For 27 hours, helicopter sonar drop. The American anti-submarine helicopter reached the suspected contact area. Hovering above the ocean, the crew lowered a dipping sonar sensor into the water. The sensor descended deep below the waves, sending out powerful sound pulses across the underwater environment. Those pulses traveled through the water until they struck objects in the distance. Then the echoes returned. Within seconds, the helicopter's sonar system received a strong reflection. The operator stared at the display. The signal pattern was unmistakable. A submarine was directly below them. For 30 hours, submarine detected. Inside the helicopter cockpit, the crew immediately transmitted the coordinates back to the carrier strike group. The contact was confirmed. One of the Russian submarines had been located, but something unexpected happened next. The sonar operator noticed sudden changes in the acoustic signature. The submarine was increasing speed. It was diving deeper into the ocean, and it was turning sharply away from the helicopter's position. The Russian submarine had realized it had been detected, and now it was trying to escape. For 34 hours, a new problem. As the helicopter tracked the fleeing submarine, another alert arrived from the destroyers. The second submarine contact had disappeared. Its acoustic signal had suddenly vanished from the sonar systems. That meant one of two things. Either the submarine had successfully evaded detection, or it had moved much closer to the carrier strike group, much closer than anyone realized. For 37 hours, tension rising. Inside the carrier's command center, officers watched the tactical display carefully. One Russian submarine was fleeing toward deeper water, but the second submarine was now unaccounted for. Somewhere beneath the strike group, a silent submarine could be maneuvering into attack position, and no one knew exactly where it was. The commander issued new orders. All ships maintain full anti-submarine alert. More helicopters launched from the carrier. Sonar systems scanned the water in every direction, because if that second submarine had managed to slip through the defensive perimeter, the situation in the North Atlantic could become extremely dangerous. For 42 hours, something moves below. Suddenly, a destroyer sonar operator shouted across the room. A new acoustic contact had appeared. This one was much closer. Too close. The sonar signal indicated a large object moving directly beneath the carrier strike group, and its speed was increasing. The operator adjusted the filters to identify the sound. When the result appeared on the screen, the room went silent. It was another Russian attack submarine, and it was now directly beneath the carrier. 4 hours, 42 minutes, and 30 seconds. Directly beneath the carrier. Inside the operations center of the American carrier, the tactical display suddenly changed. A new underwater contact icon appeared almost directly beneath the center of the strike group. The sonar data coming from the destroyer was unmistakable. A submarine-sized object was moving slowly through the deep water below the carrier. For a moment, the entire command center went silent. Attack submarines often track carrier groups from a distance, but being directly beneath the formation was extremely rare and extremely dangerous, because at that position, a submarine could launch torpedoes or cruise missiles with almost no warning. The commander immediately issued new orders. All ships tighten anti-submarine perimeter. For 43 hours, emergency defense posture. The destroyers surrounding the carrier instantly adjusted their formation. Their engines increased power as they moved closer to the carrier's position. Each ship deployed additional sonar systems into the water. Powerful active sonar pulses began spreading across the ocean depths. These pulses created loud acoustic waves that traveled through the water for kilometers. Any submarine within range would hear those signals clearly. The message was simple. The carrier strike group knew someone was down there. 4:44 hours. Russian submarine maneuver. Deep below the surface, the Russian submarine commander had already realized something had changed. The sudden burst of active sonar filled the water around his vessel. It meant the American ships had switched from passive listening to aggressive submarine hunting. Remaining directly beneath the carrier was no longer safe. The commander ordered a rapid course change. Ballast systems adjusted. The submarine angled deeper into the dark ocean below. Its propulsion system increased power slightly. The escape had begun. 4:45 hours. Helicopters. Converge. Above the ocean, multiple anti-submarine helicopters raced toward the contact location. Each aircraft carried specialized equipment designed specifically to track submarines. One helicopter lowered a dipping sonar sensor into the water. Another aircraft dropped a line of sonobuoys, small floating sensors that spread across the ocean surface and listened for underwater movement. Each sonobuoy transmitted acoustic data back to the helicopters and nearby destroyers. Within seconds, the entire area around the carrier became an underwater listening network. If the submarine moved, someone would hear it. 4:47 hours. Sonar lock. The first helicopter received a clear sonar return. The signal appeared as a sharp echo on the operator's display. The submarine was still there, but it was descending rapidly. The sonar operator tracked the changing depth: 300 meters, 350 meters, 400 meters. The submarine was diving deeper into the ocean's colder layers, where sonar signals become weaker and harder to interpret. It was a classic submarine escape maneuver. 4:49 hours. Torpedo tubes armed. Inside the helicopter, the crew prepared their weapons. Each aircraft carried lightweight anti-submarine torpedoes designed to chase and destroy underwater targets. The weapons were not launched immediately. The NATO commander had not authorized an attack, but if the submarine behaved aggressively or refused to leave the area, the situation could escalate very quickly. For now, the helicopters simply tracked the contact, and the Russian submarine continued moving deeper into the Atlantic. 4:52 hours. The second submarine returns. Just as the situation seemed under control, a new sonar alert appeared. Another destroyer several kilometers away detected a faint acoustic signal. The signature matched the earlier contact that had disappeared. The second Russian submarine had returned, but this time it was approaching from a completely different direction. The submarine had used the distraction of the first contact to reposition itself. Now it was closing in again, and this time it was moving faster. 4:54 hours. Carrier group surrounded. The tactical display now showed two separate submarine contacts, one deep below the ocean, attempting to escape, another approaching from the outer edge of the formation. The carrier strike group was suddenly facing a complex underwater situation. Submarines were attacking from two different directions. The fleet commander realized this was no simple intelligence mission anymore. The Russian submarines were testing the carrier group's defenses, perhaps even attempting to simulate an attack. The order came quickly: full anti-submarine operations. 4:56 hours. Sonar storm destroyers activated their most powerful sonar systems. Massive sound waves blasted through the ocean. The pulses echoed across the underwater terrain, bouncing off the hull of the approaching submarine. The signal returned clearly. The submarine was now only a few kilometers away, and it was still moving toward the strike group. Above the surface, helicopters adjusted their flight paths and moved to intercept. The ocean had become a giant battlefield of sound. 4:58 hours. Submarine evasion. The Russian submarine suddenly changed direction. Its commander realized the American sonar had achieved a strong detection lock. Continuing forward would risk being surrounded by helicopters and destroyers. The submarine executed a sharp maneuver, turning south and accelerating into deeper water. But the American sonar systems continued tracking the vessel. Every movement created small acoustic signals that the sensors could detect. The submarine was fast, but it was no longer invisible. 5:02 hours. Close encounter. One helicopter finally moved directly above the fleeing submarine. The sonar operator confirmed the contact. The submarine was still descending deeper into the ocean. The helicopter crew prepared a torpedo drop, but before the weapon could be released, a new order arrived from Fleet Command. Hold fire! The situation had reached a dangerous level. Launching weapons against a Russian submarine could escalate the encounter into a real military conflict. Instead, the helicopter crew maintained tracking position. Their presence alone sent a clear signal to the submarine below. You are being watched. 5:05 hours, Russian withdrawal. The submarine's acoustic signature began changing again. Its speed decreased. Its course shifted away from the carrier strike group. The commander had made a decision. Continuing the shadowing operation was now too risky. The submarine began retreating into deeper Atlantic waters. Several minutes later, the sonar signal grew weaker, then weaker still. Eventually, the contact faded completely. The submarine was gone. 5:10 hours. The other submarine disappears. Meanwhile, the first submarine that had been detected earlier also vanished from the sonar network. Its deep dive into colder water layers had allowed it to slip away from tracking systems. The ocean once again became quiet. The helicopters continued searching for another 10 minutes, but no further contacts appeared. Both Russian submarines had withdrawn from the area. 5:20 hours, fleet regains control. The carrier strike group slowly returned to normal formation. Helicopters landed back on the flight deck. Destroyers reduced sonar power and resumed standard patrol patterns. But the encounter had clearly demonstrated something important. Russian submarines were operating much closer to NATO fleets than many people realized. And modern submarine warfare remained one of the most dangerous and unpredictable forms of military confrontation because most of the battle happens far below the surface, where no one can see it. 5:30 hours, silent ocean. As the sun slowly rose above the North Atlantic horizon, the carrier strike group continued its mission. The ocean looked calm once again. Waves rolled quietly across the surface, but somewhere far below, the Russian submarines were still out there, watching, listening, waiting, and the next encounter between these silent hunters could happen at any time.